It starts off with this, right?
Yes. Good morning, everyone.
Yay, good morning. Good morning. Welcome to the Business Heroes podcast. I am Mia,
And I am Victor.
and we are here having a special show. Listen, our organization is called Pain Unwasted, and it got started because years ago, after being a principal and a teacher, had what people would call a nervous breakdown. And I was so taken off guard. I didn't know the signs and symptoms of mental illness. And so I just, rationalized everything away until one day I was actually in a behavioral health hospital. And from that moment, I've been able to go on, get the education, get the experience to be able to help other high performers and entrepreneurs along with my husband to have better mental health. And so we have this wonderful show where we highlight business heroes, people that are pursuing purpose, profit, and passion so that they can change the world for good as they take care of their mental health. And I just love our show, Victor.
Mhm.
So I'm just wanting to know, you kind of dressed a little different here today.
Yep.
What's going
Yep.
on?
Yeah. So, the title of our show is The Need for Cultural Humility in Healthcare. And I am a nurse. I work at a local hospital.
Right.
And just by the nature of the topic of the show with our two beloved healthcare professionals, I thought it'd just be fitting to be in character or something.
I like it. I always thought that you look really handsome in your nurse attire. I'm gonna have to, stay focused at the show.
Yes, please
You
stay
look really
focused on the
cute.
show. And you look beautiful as always.
Thank you, thank you. And I shouldn't say you look cute. You look handsome. Because sometimes, okay, we're talking about cultural sensitivity and things like that, right? And have you ever felt like as a professional, somebody comes to you and they're like, "Oh, you look cute," and it kind of feels like
Mm.
I'm not a puppy, you know. I'm not,
Oh
I'm not
man.
5 years old. So that's not how I meant it, love.
Of
Okay.
course, of course,
All
of
right,
course.
awesome. Well,
All right.
anyway, so come on, I need you to so man, you want to go ahead and bring them on now? Like I feel like I can't wait. Like just
Well, just before we bring them
okay,
on,
okay.
we have an important announcement because we've got something
That's true.
very important coming up on, I think it's Sunday, October 9th.
That's right.
Yeah, so all right, since Mia doesn't feel like talking about herself, so Mia is going to be doing an 8-hour mental health first aid course
Yes, that's
come
right.
this month, sorry, Sunday, October
That's
9th,
right.
2022. It's a up to 8-hour course, but she is certifying what's called mental health first aiders. Mental
That's
health
right.
first aid, if you haven't heard us talk about it before, is a program that trains people to recognize signs and symptoms of somebody in a mental health crisis and how to guide them to appropriate help. And so, similar to CPR first aid, where you don't have to be a doctor or a nurse to give somebody first aid once you know
That's
the
right.
tools, until professional help comes,
That's
then
true.
it's kind of similar in mental health first aid. So we would love for y'all to take the course. Mia is trained, certified over 200 individuals in mental health first aid, and has trained a couple thousand people just in mental health, period. And so if you are
Sure.
interested in this course, you go ahead and go to painunwasted.org. Painunwasted.org. There's a banner at the very top, an orange banner that says sign up for the next mental health first aid class. Once you click on that, you'll be getting emails of what the cost of the training will be. And didn't we say something like the first 10 people that sign
Yes.
up will get a how much percent
Yes,
discount?
yes. They actually get a 50% discount. So that's really
50%
good.
discount. Okay, great.
Absolutely.
And certification lasts for 3 years, right?
Yes, it is a 3-year certification. And for those of you who may be interested, you can actually get your CEUs for this and
Mm-hmm.
also the credentials that doctors may need. They can also use it for those. It's really great, especially for those of you who, even though you're already in medical fields or if you're in another field and you're like, man, I really would like a better handle on what to do when people come into my office and they're showing signs and symptoms that something might not be quite right with their mental health. Like, I want to know that I'm confident in what I will do. And beyond that, even if you're not in those realms of services, but you have family members, statistics tell us 1 in 5 people are battling with their mental health, and that's across all ages. And so it's a really great training. It's really fun, very practical, but you will love it, and you will you have that confidence to know that you know what to do in the case of a crisis for someone's mental health. So
Mm-hmm.
I really appreciate you plugging that, Victor. Man, I just am pumped about who's coming on the show today. Please, we have to bring them on.
Yes.
Let's talk about them.
Okay.
And while you're pulling them on, I want to say it's really great to have people in your life that you know them personally and now they get to be on your show or now we get to have them on our show.
Yep.
Because when I think about these two wonderful people, like just down to earth, highly educated, extremely talented, love God. I mean, they're just amazing. Like I'm still thinking about their wedding day and how awesome it was. It was just wonderful to see two people you really love come together. Do you all
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like when you're like, man, this is really great. So anyway,
Yes.
you're
Yes.
gonna
Yes.
love them
Yes.
too when you see them. Watch, you'll see. But let's let
Yes.
Victor introduce.
All right. Well, Morgan and doctors,
Yes.
Morgan and Tedean Green, are a husband and wife dynamic duo who have gone to great lengths to support each other's dreams through the years. They both graduated from Loma Linda University School of Medicine. Tedean is an ear, nose, and throat surgeon graduating from Wayne State University in Michigan, and Morgan is a pediatric hospital medicine doctor graduating from UCSF, University of California, San Francisco, I guess, Oakland in Northern California. Professionally, they both love finding, finding service to humanity with. I'm so sorry, I'm butchering it. Yeah, they love serving humanity with the gifts and knowledge that God has given them. Together, they can enjoy wholesome TV shows, strengthening their faith through sermons and prayer while traveling as much as they can. All right. So without further ado, let's bring on doctors Morgan and Tedean Green. Welcome to the show. We are so excited to have you all on today. Yeah, some of the show's hardly started, and we've got comments. I don't know if you know Clifford Williams, but he says, "Amen," and to God be the glory.
Yay.
All right. All right, great. And yes, please, if you've got comments, anything you'd like to add or ask questions, please drop them in the chat, and we'll go from there. And also, if you think somebody else may benefit from this show, feel free to like, share, and subscribe. All right. Oh boy, somebody's already said this the same. They're like, I'd love to have you all in Jamaica.
All right.
Okay. All right.
My family's Jamaican.
Yeah. Hey. All right.
Well, if y'all are going, I'm coming too.
Hey.
I'll be a part.
We'll all be there, Clifford. We'll be there with you. So wonderful. We are so glad to have you all on. Thank you. You all are in California and we are over here in Alabama. So this is a time difference for you guys. And so we really appreciate you making the sacrifice to come on as busy people as you are, to come on and just shed light for others who, sometimes we don't have the difficult conversations about disparities and, what is it really like to show up in your workplace, as a person of color, honestly. And so this is a really great topic that we're going to share. And those of you watching, if you haven't gotten a chance to say, hey, friend, get on here, then please go ahead and grab them, call them. You want them to watch this show today. And so tell us, okay, Morgan Tedean, just let the audience know, like, what you do. I know we talked about it in your bio, but can you just break it down a little bit, what it could look like on a, for you all, maybe a day in your work, a day in the life of your work. And then I have another question. I want to just kind of get in your business about your relationship, if you don't mind. Yeah. For those people like me who like to know about that kind of stuff.
I've been friends with Vic and Mia since like 2006, and it caused me to imagine, how much time has passed and how the relationship has gotten to develop and grow. They knew me before Tedean, and so I am a pediatric hospital medicine doctor, meaning that if your child is so sick that they cannot leave the hospital and have to stay for hours or days, you see me every single day, helping to take care of you and the family until everyone gets to go home, ideally never to see me again, is the goal. I also get to do education. We currently work at Loma Linda School of Medicine and their Children's Hospital. I'm getting to work with the medical students in different levels of their training, which is really beautiful, and I find a big passion for. So education and hospital medicine.
Wow, that's awesome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so in terms of my field, we go by many names, but most commonly known as ENT, so ear, nose, and throat, head and neck surgeon. So Typical for me is if you're having any sinus issues or any ear, nose, and throat problems, you'll see me in the office. And our practice does have a lot of clinic, but we also do surgery as well. So if there's something that you need operated on in the head and neck area, we'll take care of that as well. So that's what we do.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you so much for breaking that down. This is so serious. Like, wow. As I'm listening to what you all do, I'm just thinking about like COVID and what that would have looked like for you all, because here you are talking about sinuses and here you are talking about sick children. And this is really intense. And I don't know, I almost feel like COVID is like this bad word, even when you say it, you're just like, I don't know, something comes over you, just hearing about it, you just want the word to go away. And yet we know when we're talking about mental health that when we try to ignore things, it actually makes it worse. And so I want to know, well, before I go there, because for those people who are like me, you want to know. So I know you all are married and we want to know, how did you, like, if you could tell us in a nutshell, like, how did you fall in love? Like, where did you meet each other and how did that develop?
My short version, I'll chime in, is that we are both graduates of Oakwood University, and we technically met there. We had a collective of 3.5 minutes conversation over the course of the time. Nothing where we thought much of it. That like, oh yeah, we're totally going to get married. It was just one of those, like, we were just aware, like, oh, we're both in the biology department, and we both desired to go to medical school, very likely in different states. I'm Californian, Tedean's a Michigan native. Didn't think much. And for me, it was the second year we both ended up going to Loma Linda. And because I took time off, I'm a couple years ahead of her in school, a couple years older. Because I took time off, we ended up in the same class. So our second year, we were at a very wealthy friends. Those friends who are not aware how much money they have. And
That's nice.
Invite people over for parties and stuff.
Yay.
We were having a pizza party. And a group of us who graduated from Oakwood and who were Loma Linda students were just, congregating together and laughing and joking. And I realized oh, Tedean makes me laugh. She's funny. She's good looking. I hope you go out with me. And she said yes. That's from that.
Yeah, it's similar in Oakwood. It's funny because I always because Morgan is a person, as we talk, you'll get to know, who's just in everything, and he loves just doing a ton of things. And so I remember in Oakwood, just my impression of him was oh yeah, that guy that's in everything, he's always doing something. But I didn't really know much more other than that. And then he was always helping people, loves working with students. And the one conversation I remember when we were in undergrad was he was helping those who were trying to get into medical school with their personal statement. And so he was asking hey, I can help you with your personal statement. And so then he asked me,
powerful.
He asked me one day, and I honestly don't remember this conversation.
I do. She said, no, her mom's got this. And I know her mom, her mom does got this. But she's like, my mom's already taking care of it. Thank you for the offer. I don't need it though.
Wow.
Apparently I rejected him at that point.
Neil, were you already liking her, Morgan? Were you?
No, he said they
they're not at that point.
My senior year, I was actually dating a different woman. This was one in the biology department. A friend of mine told me how she was applying to medical school. In my head, I want to treat everybody equal. It's everyone, I want to support however I can. So this was just a genuine applying for medical school. I believe I'm really good at this personal statement thing. Let me help you. And it's my mom is here. So.
So that was our encounter in undergrad. But then fast forward to Loma Linda, and we didn't really, even the first year of medical school, we weren't really interested in each other. And then the second year is what he was talking about when we started to link up. And we're oh, we actually have a lot of connection and a lot in common. Which is funny because we're completely opposite people, personality wise. He's super extrovert and I'm a super introvert. And so it was funny how that worked out. But it did. So
Wow, that is so cool. I really like how he said, "Man, she makes me laugh and she's attractive." I love that. That's
Yeah.
so cool. I mean, you guys are breaking so many stereotypes that are out there in this world, and I just really appreciate the love story. I mean, their marriage, it was, correct me if I'm wrong, it was a yacht. You guys were on it was a yacht. Is that what that's called?
Like a mega yacht?
Yeah, a mega yacht. It was just gorgeous. I mean, we were on the water, we were like floating down, and it was just a wonderful experience. So, anyway, it was great. Whatever that was we were on, I want to get on another one. Whatever we were on. But
Yeah.
so that's really good. Like I'm really grateful. So tell us now, just get into the nitty gritty. Like, what has it been like for you all for these past 2 years, 3 years? You kind of don't know when to like classify it almost, like in terms of your profession and dealing with your patients with COVID, or how COVID manifested in your particular areas.
And then you could weave in the whole cultural humility thing, because we really want to hear when you offered that title, we were like, ooh. So if that segues into that, that'd be great.
Absolutely. I'll headline, and then do you want to go first after this?
I can go. Yeah.
I'll headline the culture humility piece because it's a term kind of published by Dr. Melanie Turvalon and Jan Murray Garcia out of my alma mater, UCSF Oakland, at the time Children's Hospital Oakland, in collaboration with UCSF, to have a dialogue. Multiple fields have their realm of it. In the healthcare field, it's this discussion between cultural competency, meaning watch this video, read this book, check this box, you have this skill, and cultural humility, recognizing that there's a lifelong commitment and learning, that people are complicated, socioeconomic statuses are challenging, racial disparities and disparities are real, and how can we continue to be knowledgeable, to be empathetic, to be compassionate across difference, especially when you're not like race concordant. So if you are a different race than whoever you provide, like for me in Loma Linda, we have a very heavily Latino population, and oftentimes do not speak English. Like, how do you show up so that regardless of who I'm talking to, if they are the child of my best friend or the child of a stranger whose language I do not know, how do they get equal care and know that they get that equal love, right? So it's that dynamic with it. And I think in a shortened hand, COVID was very unique for us as pediatricians. It was a national conversation. Once you take the kids out of school and don't let them leave the house, they're not passing germs off to each other. So early on in COVID, a lot of children's hospitals were wildly empty as adult populations were suffering significantly. I know my job, where I was working at the time, was having conversations about how legal it would be. Turned out it's not, to have the pediatricians move on to the adult floors. Like, I'm not certified in that, so I'd be wide open for like lawsuits. Like, I have no practice in working in population. So lacking of patience early on that they were wondering if they can shuttle pediatricians into the adult ICUs, in the adult floors, because that's where the real need was. And then I think 8 or 9 months in, when kids were getting these inflammatory responses, so showing up in the emergency room after a week or two from getting COVID with heart failure or with low blood pressure, then we started kind of kicking into gear. This is also back when they were getting back in touch with each other. So it was an interesting time, like going to work, hoping I'd stay employed, hoping that the conversations about how there's too many pediatricians on staff when we don't have enough patients would not mean that they'd let my job go. So that's kind of how COVID was for me. Like, would I stay employed this week?
Wow. Would I stay employed this week? I mean, that is really, really, really intense. I mean, you said some really powerful things there for, I think, the audience to meditate on. I mean, wow, you said that, okay, 2 weeks after, that's when it would show up for the children. They've had COVID, and now after they supposedly have passed COVID, is that what it is? Now they're having the heart failure and all of that. Could you maybe talk to us about like why that would have been the case?
Hi, Jeffrey. Oh man, I should have memorized it. We call it MISC, but like multi-inflammatory systemic disease due to COVID. Multi-inflammatory disease, systemic disease due to COVID. It's this thought to be an autoimmune. A lot of times in medicine, we're not fully sure what's going on, and there was a recent infection, it's like autoimmune, right? So It's the conversation of like this autoimmune but response. Children's immune systems is so immature still for a while.
Right.
We're
Right.
seeing this in younger kids, so they have a propensity to overreact. So
Yeah.
COVID happened. COVID's here. Thankfully, they don't have the burden of disease adults do, who were dying in droves. They still are robust enough where it's still a cold, runny nose for them. This illness goes past, and then their immune system's not done. Like, well, we're still upset, and
Right.
as it continues to cause this chronic inflammation, worst case scenario, it was showing up with heart failure. That was the most significant effect. Oftentimes it did show up with bad fevers, bad rashes, that we would keep them in the hospital, sometimes treat with additional antibodies to press that down, or
Right. Wow, thank you so much for that. I know that there are parents that are going to watch this. Somebody, hi, your mom is watching Terry
Yeah,
Huntley.
that's
That's great.
parents.
Oh,
Our hunter mother.
awesome, awesome. Wow, wow. Y'all got a lot of love coming your way. Thank you for explaining that, because there are parents and grandparents, they'll watch this show. And when we're talking about disparities, like one thing I was looking up as I was kind of researching for the show is the idea that, a lot of times for people of color, we may not get all the information, right? We may not know all that's involved, or have it outlined to us. What are the guidelines if this should happen or that should happen? And so just that piece right there is something I know I had not heard, and honestly, kids are back in school, things are happening. And so that is a very helpful piece of information for us. I want to know, Tedean, what about for you? Like, what was it like in your sphere of the work as COVID was progressing and even waning down?
Mhm. Yeah, so in ENT, a lot of our field actually kind of a little bit similar to what Morgan was touching on. We do a lot of what's called elective procedures. So a lot of what we do, really the bulk of our specialty is about quality of life. And so a lot of what we do in our practice, technically by the government deemed elective. So a lot of our surgeries are canceled. A lot of our clinics were canceled. And so, we actually had a lot of open time. So we probably one of the biggest roles we still continue to play was in terms of those patients who would get so sick that they would require ventilation, and then eventually have to have what's called a tracheostomy procedure, which is essentially where you have to actually put a breathing tube directly through the neck because they're not able to get off of the ventilator. So we still were involved in that aspect of the care, which is a very important part. But because a lot of our other surgeries and clinics were canceled, then we actually had a lot of open time. So some of us, so depending upon kind of what role you were playing in our department, some of us were kind of shipped off to other departments to help out. So like the intensive care unit. So some of our residents were very intensely involved in the ICU, and it actually was a pretty traumatic experience for many people, long hours, and just early on in the pandemic, everything was just no one really knew what was going on, so it was kind of really crazy. And others that I talked to, not specifically in our practice, but I have other colleagues, and they, their private practice had to be closed, like they were not being paid. And so just dealing with the stress of that, you can imagine like, going from a certain income to suddenly like you're not getting any income, so it's very stressful for some ENTs in the field. Yeah, so overall it was kind of a mixed bag, like in terms of some being very like heavily involved, and then some suddenly finding like no work to do. So it was kind of all over.
Wow.
Wow. Well, thank you for sharing. That's really, some heavy stuff right there. Not to do an abrupt pivot, but when we saw you all last month, You know, we were talking a lot about this whole idea of cultural sensitivity, cultural humility, and both of you shared some experiences with us that kind of like took us aback, you know, when it comes to that, you know, in healthcare with y'all's personal experiences. And so we would love to hear those again for our viewers.
Do you want to go first?
Okay, I can go first.
I can go too.
So yeah, at a certain point in my career, I had an experience where, you know, it was just a regular day in clinic, and, you know, just minding my business, doing my work, and suddenly I heard just yelling. Like someone was just like clearly angry and was just like raising their voice, you know, making a scene. I couldn't really see what was going on, but I heard it because I was close by. And so I was like, wonder what's going on. So then, you know, I just walked out of my door because I just wanted to see, you know, if I could help. And, you know, I saw there was a mother. It was an African-American mother who rushed out of this this particular office, and she had a little her little son with her, maybe like 2 years old, and she also was pregnant, and she, you know, she saw me and was just like, you know, I just can't, you know, I feel so you know, upset. And then I was like, okay, like, you know, what's going on? And so she was just explaining that she felt that she wasn't being heard and that she was feeling disrespected by the particular person that she was working with, this healthcare provider. And so I was like, okay, well, let me, you know, okay, just wait here, you know, don't go anywhere, just wait. Let's try to figure this out. So I went into the room of this particular provider, and this provider was of a different ethnicity, and she was like visibly like shaking, and I was like, okay, what just happened? You know, can you explain what was going on? And the woman was on the phone. She's like, I just can't, I'm calling security. And I was like, okay, wait, hold on. Let's take a deep breath. Let's pause, you know, hold on, you know, before you talk to security, can we talk, you know, about what was going on, what was happening? And, you know, because as a healthcare provider, we've had some training of like how to recognize dangerous situations. And so, you know, there are certain situations when no, security needs to be there right now, you know, and so I'm not downplaying that, but I could read in the situation, okay, this is clearly not a violent situation. You know, it doesn't seem like it's harmful in a physical sense. Okay, I think we can hold off on calling security at this point. And so the particular lady who was still kind of like shaking was just like, you know, she actually could barely talk, but she was just explaining, you know, I was just trying to ask, you know, routine questions that I usually ask to all of my patients. I don't understand, you know, but the mother, you know, this patient kept getting upset with me that I was just asking this question. And I said, okay, well, what question were you asking? And she explained that, well, I was just asking because it was a therapy session, and she was asking this particular mother, this patient, okay, can you tell me, because it was for her son, the therapy was for her son, so can you tell me, you know, about your other children, and, you know, like, are they having the same problem? And the mother was like, well, I don't want to talk about that. You know, she was just clear, like, I don't understand why you're asking that question. I don't want to talk about my other children. I'm here for my child right here. Why are you asking me about my other children? But the particular therapist kept pressing, well, you know, I ask this every time. Can you just, you know, like, she kept asking the question. I just want to know if this particular finding that you're having in your child, do you have it with your other children as well? And the mother was getting upset because she did not want to answer that question. And so she kind of started raising her voice. It's like, why do you keep pressing this when I keep telling you that I don't want to answer this question? And she got really upset. And so the particular therapist was saying, well, she started to feel threatened because the mom was raising her voice and then actually stood up. And she felt, oh, this mom is threatening me. I feel unsafe. I'm going to call the security right now.
Wow.
And so, I said, well, okay, is there another way that we can work through this? Let's just talk about this and try to figure out, where both parties are coming from. And so I said, okay. So I after I kind of was going back and forth between the two because the mom was still in the hallway. And so I was like, okay, I'll be right back. Now, I kind of was able to calm the therapist down. And she was no longer actively calling security. I was like, okay, I'll be right back. Let me go check on the mom.
You better go. Yeah.
Let me check on the mom. And the mom was just like, I just feel really just very upset. I don't understand. Like I was telling her I don't want to talk about this and she keeps pressing it. And I feel like she's like threatening to take my kids away. And so then I was just like, I was talking to the therapist, and we'll definitely figure this out. I'm so sorry about the experience that you've had. We'll be talking with our supervisor about this, to figure out a way that we can make this better for you. I'll, here's my, contact information, feel free to reach out. We'll try to figure this out. And so the mom kind of, calmed down. She's like, okay. And she was very thankful. And she visibly, you could tell that she was, calmed down. And then she left. So the family left. And so, just going back to talk with the therapist again, and just, like hearing that situation, I was like, the mom felt uncomfortable, with the question that was being asked. And so she was telling me that's why she was getting upset because it was being asked. And so then the therapist was like, okay, I understand that. I just felt like she was, I just felt really threatened and I felt uncomfortable. But I'm not going to call the security, I'll talk with my boss about this and blah, blah, blah. So that was a very interesting situation for me in terms of, just the general discussion that we're going to have when it comes to cultural humility, two different races in a healthcare setting and what that can sometimes look like when certain actions are perceived a certain way. And how can we learn to, because it can go either way, it can go either way. The mother on the point of the therapist understanding that this particular mother was upset and raising her voice, not because she was, about to get physical, but because she felt scared that that you're looking into my other kids. Are you trying to find some fault with me as a mother and then take my kids away? So that was her fear. And so, maybe instead of just suddenly reacting to the raised voice, maybe just trying to understand, okay, well, why don't you, asking the question, well, trying to understand, well, why don't you want to answer that question? Go ahead.
Well, I want to bring something up there. Well, first of all, I want to say, sounds like a business hero to me.
Yes.
Tedean,
Yes.
I mean, definitely business hero. You could have definitely been like, you know what, I don't have time for this. I don't know what's going on out there, but I'm going to, continue to do whatever I'm doing. But you took the time, care, and initiative to go and find out what was happening. You know what I mean? Somebody else, maybe not, and so that is really amazing. Just thinking about how like the outcome for that lady was different because you came and you sought to help. And that's amazing. And this is, hopefully it doesn't sound like pressure because, they're showing up when you can, it's not like you have to always do that, but the fact that you were able that day and you did, that is really, really powerful to me. And I just thank you for doing that. And this is really powerful what you said. The lady didn't understand where she was coming from. And me as a mother of color, it's like as soon as you started telling the story, I understood, I understood why she didn't want to talk about the other kids. And I could see why she would stand up and say, oh no, like, why are you asking about my other children? Because this is what we hear all the time. DHS gets involved, Department of Human Services, and there's this idea, especially, and I just wonder, and you tell me what you think, even if the lady had asked her, why wouldn't you want to answer my question? I wonder if there would have been still a lack of trust, right? To answer that, like, would she have even still felt comfortable to answer any other questions from this woman, just because of the, I don't know, the fears that we might have as to, well, why are you asking? I mean, what are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, so that, it kind of touches on a little bit of what I was mentioning in terms of, this whole discussion, culture humility, goes both ways, about both spectrums of culture. To sometimes, we can allow our own fears because of our particular culture, especially when you're a person of color. We can allow our own fears to cause us to navigate certain situations in ways that can actually end up being harmful to us. And so sometimes, and sometimes it is the reality, right? Sometimes it is the reality. Maybe some person is trying to do something that you do fear, but not always. So learning, even as a person of color, to sometimes take a step back and try to understand the situation. Like what I think the mother could have done, take a step back and try to understand, okay, well, where exactly is this therapist going? And and I think that could have also helped. So I think that culture humility goes both ways, and just trying to really taking the time to pause, can be so powerful in those situations. And I think that we don't often learn that in not only healthcare, but other, business aspects and relationships, navigating with colleagues and different things. Just taking the step to understand where someone else is coming from can save so much drama and, help us in those messier situations. So that's what I would say.
And I just want to offer this, because I like how now that I'm going to different clinics and hospitals, I'm seeing more cultural diversity as it pertains to images, right? Like, because no matter who the provider is that I'm going to see, when I've come into the hospital and I see multicultural kids being presented, like I don't just see one type of face, then it can really help me to feel that, okay, this is an environment that is open to me, and so I really love that. And just a plug for those of you who work in different places, being able to speak with your, I don't know if it's HR or who you would talk to about, having a diverse artwork even can make a difference. Diverse magazines out there in the waiting room, a diverse staff. To be able to help put that person at ease and to feel that, I'm welcomed here. It could probably do a lot to ease anxiety and fear and frustration. And
I think my hospital does a good job with that. I won't call their name just in case there's some red tape later, but my hospital definitely has a good representation. And being in Alabama, of all places, I can definitely say I have not encountered any racial issues, at least that I'm aware of, per se. So I think that's very important. But Tedean, thank you for exemplifying Christ. And that brings me to another point. Missionary work is broad. Missionary work, when God has his people everywhere is a mission field for those people, so it's not always, it's not limited to, typical ideas, feeding the homeless, that's great. Christians should do that. Going overseas, that's important work. People should do that. But we should not negate that being in a hospital in the US as a doctor, or whatever it is, you could be a banker, you could be on a high paying job that makes tons of money. It doesn't make you any less of a missionary should you choose to fulfill that role and be Christ's hands and feet wherever you are, because somebody's got to reach the people in the hospital, somebody's got to reach the wealthy, somebody's got to reach the poor, but being where God placed you with your specific gifts and talents and being willing to share his love in that profession is being a missionary.
But now, Victor, wait, because this kind of, did I cut you off?
Well, we can't forget Morgan's story.
I was just about to say, because when you talk about, and I don't know, we don't have time to have a fight about this, right? Because I would love to fight about this. But like you talk about mission work, right? And you talk about serving people and serving where you are. And is it possible, and I'm thinking about your story, Morgan, you're about to share with us an experience that you had in your hospital where you are experiencing, and I don't know if you would call it burnout. I'll let you explain what you feel that you were experiencing. Could somebody feel that, in this serving and care profession that I always have to show up, I have to be the one because I'm a missionary or I'm a Christian, I should be doing this, right? Should being a cognitive distortion. Like, tell us about that. What was your experience where people felt that you should be doing something, Morgan, as you're experiencing, the whole COVID issues and traumas? Like, come on, tell us.
Yeah, we had a beautiful conversation in the parking lot of Victor's parents' house, where the majority of these stories came from. So over COVID, I as Tedean had already said, and for those who know me, I am a very strong extrovert. There's not a lot of elements of introversion or quietness there. I love conversation. I love talking to people. Engaging in relationship, regardless of what sphere I'm in, makes the day feel better. When I am stressed, I withdraw. I less, I call less, I'm trying to process. Like over COVID and all of the racial conversations we were poorly having as a country, I don't know, maybe there was burnout. I know an overwhelming emotion was anxiety. I can't even to this day fully kind of name where the anxiety was coming from, but I know that I was chronically more amped than I regularly was. And one of my unhealthy that I'm working on now, but one of my unhealthy treatments to anxiety is food. And in this case was specifically pie. So I'm at home eating these multiple pies per week, gaining weight, not fitting my pants, just trying, Tedean being sweet, like, oh, is this the second pie? I didn't eat any, and the first one's already gone. Where did it go? And so, you don't know my life, you don't know my stress. I'm gonna eat this second pie too by myself. So I'm just eating.
Thank you for sharing that, Morgan. Thank you for your realness. Thank you.
and going to work unhappy. I was really stressed out, so I was withdrawn. I was not having small talk. I was not engaging with my ancillary staff, nurse practitioners working with me, nurses, where my troubles ended up lying, and we'll talk about that. And so that's kind of the backdrop. I'm stressed because all these racial conversations. I don't exactly know why, but it's making me more anxious. I am eating more. I'm gaining weight. I'm unhappy with how I look. And so I'm just nagging through all these things. And so my boss pulls me into her office, and she has been a faithful supporter. And really, I valued the relationship I got to have with her. She pulled me into her office, and she told me that over the past several weeks, which correlated along with, like, I'm withdrawing, I'm eating pie, I'm gaining weight, I'm unhappy. Over the past several weeks, the nursing has been coming to her and complaining particularly about me, worried that I'm not giving good patient care. There was no clear examples. There were no stories. There was no poor outcome, but it was, like these red flags, so if people just labeled, like, I can't say why or how, and there's no proof to it. But I think that Dr. Morgan Green's not giving good care to his patients. I question if he's even seeing patients. I was like, what? Wait,
I'm sorry. So you're withdrawing, you stop making small talk, and all of a sudden that equates to you not providing the best care
or care at all,
or seeing your patients at all.
Yeah. Never mind his charting notes and things like that have to prove that he's actually seeing people, but keep going. Yes.
Now, exactly. I have to ask this because, and I think I know the answer, but like, you are of a different culture then most of your ancillary coworkers.
Yeah, we had a group at the time of 16 to 18 physicians. 2 of us were Black. I was the only Black male for peds hospital medicine. And then maybe 5 or 6 nurse practitioners, one of which was a Black woman. So of like 20 people, 3 of us were Black. And as is my norm in healthcare as a Black male, I was the only one in the group. And none of the nurses who were complaining about me like shared the race. I do not know how much that contributed, but I know that there were social norms of someone plug that in. I'm seeing Dr. Green less. He's not talking to me as much. Someone made that jump. Maybe he's not navigating with the patients. I just know that there was no details. I spoke with my boss about that. Which patient are they talking about? Which complaint? What specifically took place for this outcome? Because no one has spoken to me. And she was honest. She's like, there are none. There's no bad outcome. No one's brought up any clear example, but this is what they're saying. And, I know that it's not, she did take my side-ish where she's like, I know this is not true. I know who I hired. I know who you've been. And, you're highly loved. Whatever you're doing, though, like, fix it. And she tried to give me examples of, she did say, like, you should talk with them more when people, like, have coffee with them. I don't drink caffeine, but it was like, have coffee with them, like, sit down there and be more social. Historically, when doctors are more social, everyone feels better. So, I'm just letting you know what's going on behind your back, but like fix it. So I remember coming home to
talk about the pressure.
Yeah, I remember coming home to Dean really upset because no one has any clear examples of what I'm doing poorly for my patient care, but it's this ongoing conversation. And I knew what was asked of me. And I remember talking to her at home how frustrating it was. Like, I know that what I'm supposed to do next is ask people. At this point in time, it was a couple weeks after the vaccine had been released for healthcare providers. So it was still like brand new for the COVID vaccine. I know that people want me to ask about their personal life. They want me to check in what's going on with their marriages and where they're taking their kids for daycare. And I did not want to. I wanted to do my work and go home.
Were people asking you that question, by the way? Were people checking on you, by the way?
No, I was just gaining weight. I was just gaining weight and
anybody saying, "Hey, I've noticed changes in you," and are you
doing?
okay?
How are you doing, Dr. Green?
No. So the next several shifts over the course of that month, like I set intentional times to just show up and ask, like, and everyone was so excited. Like, oh my goodness, let me tell you what my husband's doing at home, and let me tell you about my children, and can I ask you personal questions about this vaccine? And I'm nervous about XYZ. Answer these things. And so having to continue to make myself available when I tired. And at this point, I had recognized I did not like my weight. I'm trying to get a personal trainer. I got a successful one. And so like I'm navigating all this in the background, but that was an added thing I had to bring and show up with. Like, I'm not only having to do my job, see these patients, navigate these additional scenarios, I have to also make sure I have a personal touch point with each staff here to identify the one who's complaining about me. And sure enough, a couple weeks later, my boss pulls me back in. He's like, whatever you did is working. The complaints have stopped and people are complimenting you again. So good job, and so that having to give up of yourself. Thank you, Jeff.
Jeffrey.
We've also been friends since 2000. So that's why he's over here not knowing how to act, just doing his thing. But so that's a dynamic that sometimes I hear stories of my other colleagues of color. Tedean has her own, where oftentimes there's this more is asked of us in certain situations. And it will be the difference between favor or disfavor. Sometimes it can be the difference between promotion or constant questioning. I ended with a very good note from my boss. I later did leave that job because we moved. And I left on a good note with my boss. Imagine if that was the chronic thing leading up. She has to write letters for my next job of, oh, by the way, here's what the nursing has been saying the past 8 months versus Morgan is exemplary as he was when I hired him. So I knew that goal that I'm leaving because we were moving. I want to preserve this relationship with my boss. I want to preserve my reputation because I know I'm good at my job and to keep that moving forward.
Man, this is really intense because I know you all were telling us like there's actually been people that you know that as you've worked with them, they actually lost their jobs or were moved because they did not make the same choices you did. And I have a hard question for you. And I hate that we're just about at the end of our show, but in choosing to do that, like what would, okay, it's kind of like a two-part question. Part one is, did you feel like you were betraying yourself now in showing up in that way? Like, man, I'm not being true to who I am. Like I'm having to, put on a happy face. Did you feel like a sense of personal betrayal on your own? And then also, in terms of responsibility, like what would you share with other colleagues that may watch this or may get wind of this, or as we talk to people, like based on the decision that you made, like what would your recommendation be to people who face this type of scenario that you faced?
Yes, I did feel angry. I remember coming back I was working a series of night shifts at that time, and I remember coming home to Tedean and I come frustrated, like this should not be a thing I'm judged for. This is not what I went to school for conversation. And I'm also like unhappy in COVID. Like there's a dynamic that's adding more work to me. So I was frustrated that this was an additional benchmark of my professionalism, how much I'm liked, which equals my socialness. So I was like, man, like I didn't personally feel like I was betraying a piece of myself, but I was upset. And then as it segues into the second part, what I would recommend for people, because again, like different strategies may not work for all,
Right.
but the context in my mind, I personally love to take control of situations as I can. I want to be able to do something that reminds me I still have power. And like, so Tedean knows I'm like,
Yes, that's good. Underline that. I
when
like to
I'm
do things that remind me that I still have power. That's
Self-care.
awesome. That's
Self-care.
awesome.
when
Thank you
when
for
I'm
that.
frustrated with people at work, I will buy like a small little gift. This same nursing group, before I left, I got them a coffee maker. It was that like reminder, like I'm not going to keep this emotional grudge. Like you will not. I'm not going to allow this to be a memory that keeps me up at night. Like I have other things.
Ooh,
And so for me,
so
when
good.
there are scenarios that will not, because I'm a very direct personality
Yes.
in terms of conversation.
Yes.
There are scenarios I can identify where conversation's not going to work. I could pick out a couple of the nursing that I knew by their behaviors were complaining about me, and I could have sat down next to them, been like, "I know what you said to my boss. She told me. Let's talk about." I knew that would not go well for me. So when I identify scenarios where a direct conversation may cause worse issues down the line, I identify like what else can I control, and that's what I identified I could. I do not want to hear what's going on with your home life right now. I have my own home life that is not in line and not in order. I need to lose this weight. So my home life I did not feel was right. There was piles of clothes I could no longer fit into that I liked. And so I was like, I have my own things that I'm trying to navigate, and I do not want to walk you through where your children's daycare is at this point in time. Like that's not where I had bandwidth for, but I reframed my thinking in
That's beautiful.
future focus. Like my focus was that I knew I was moving. I have a good relationship with my boss now, and I do not want this petty dynamic to carry over into my new job. Healthcare, I think other professions too, but healthcare has a very heavy hand in your prior boss writing forward to your new boss. Like there's a lot of there's phone calls, there's emails, and I was like, this is too small, and I do too good of a work for this conversation to follow me into my next career. So as I was talking about their daycare things and what card games their husbands like to play and video game recommendations they were asking for their children, in my head, it's like, I'm going to a new job. I do a good job at work. And this is how I get to reclaim my narrative. My narrative is not Dr. Green's more absent, so maybe he's a worse doctor. My narrative is like Dr. Green is quite excellent and is worthy at whatever position God puts him in next. And let me take that back. So I reframed it in reminding myself that I have power in this scenario.
Man, that is so good. That is so good. Man, it makes me think about the book 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. And he just talks about this principle of beginning with the end in mind. And what do you want the outcomes to be of your life? Like at the end of your life, what do you want to be able to be said of you? Or what are the goals that you want to have accomplished by the time you reach the end of your life. And so being able to look at that point and dial back and say, okay, what are the steps that are going to lead up to that moment where I can say this was my legacy? And as I'm listening to you, it sounds like that's exactly what you did. And I believe that sometimes as an African American person, I know for me, I get caught up in my reputation in the sense that, oh, they're not going to do this. You know what I mean? Let me show them, let me teach them a thing or two. And I'm just in transparency. In the past, that's how I would think of it. Or like, I've got to, I don't want to seem like a, what do they call it? Brown noser or something like that. So I've got to assert myself a certain way so these people know who I am, type of ideology or mindset. And just hearing the way you did it, it was so powerful and pure. There was no sense of, I denied myself, but it was like, no, I dialed in to my true mission of why I'm here. And that was a greater focus that kind of helped me. Our feelings follow our focus, and so it looks like that's exactly what you did. That's really, really great. As we get down to the end of our show, no, I don't know if Tedean, you have anything you want to add to this part of the conversation, or what your thoughts would be, or any words.
Yeah, no, I mean, everything that was said is exactly what you just said, Mia, is exactly my thought as well. That it's very easy to just live moment to moment, but taking the time, just like how Morgan did, and we've seen this. There's so many other stories, where we see a similar dynamic playing, and depending upon how that situation is acted upon, can sometimes lead to the person losing the job or the person being fired, not because they were incompetent, but because there was a disconnect between certain, a lot of times, honestly, just cultural interactions, and misunderstandings. So I think what you said, Mia, was so important, that it's, you don't lose a part of yourself if you take the time to identify what are the most important things to me, and what are the things that I can do to achieve those goals. And obviously we have standards, and there are certain compromises that we shouldn't do. But there are many things that we can do that don't go against our value system, that will still enable us to eventually get to where we need to. And then just kind of picking back to what I said before, like taking more time to pause in difficult situations to really understand, okay, what are the power dynamics here? What are the circumstances that I'm going through, and how can I understand this in a different way than through the eyes of retaliation, through the eyes of fear, frustration, and so that's what I would say, just taking that time to understand.
Wow, this is so good. This is so good. When you said fear, it made me think about an acronym that I heard when I was in a depression recovery program, recovering from depression. And it was intense. They said fear, the acronym is false evidence appearing real, right? And I know that we can all say that when we're in fear, it's like the evidence appears as to why this is true, that this bad thing is, or is going to happen, or is going to play out in a certain way, and the ability to change that to love, changing that focus, how will I love myself? How will I love my mission that I've been called to do, whatever that is, or my purpose, my passion, and how will I love those around me? And that changing to that mode will really, really help. Man, thank you guys so much for being on our show. This has been juicy. I feel like I've been sitting in your living room. I just need like some pie, which I love pie too, Morgan. And there's so much we could have talked about, because being able to, oh man. And okay, can we just take like one more minute to say, what are some ways you relieve the pressure? Like what are some ways that you relieve the pressure? Because it's still, even though you're showing up for your mission and your focus, right, there is pressure involved. So like, what are some ways now that you relieve that pressure for yourselves to just like, whew, okay.
I think really being honest and giving yourself time for the things that you genuinely enjoy. I know my mom is on. I know she still judges me, but I love playing video games, and I will take this period of times to get involved in this like other world that has nothing to do with like my current living scenario where people are throwing fire and lightning bolts. Like that stresses me. I really enjoy that, just that unwinding, and I like social situations. I love our church community. Tedean, we'll go to church and Tedean's like, okay, we're only going to stay 30 minutes after the service. I need to get home. And so as we're on the way to church, so I'll pick, like, I have dinner plans and phone calls, and I like to prioritize and calendar, like, what's my people touch point. Like, yes, I'll have my video game thing, but who am I eating dinner with today? Who am I taking a walk with today? Tedean, will we have time to walk around this garden nearby our house? Can we go? We're in Dayton right now. Like, can we go to the beach and travel and such?
Nice.
So
That's beautiful.
I like travel. I like people. I like video games. I like traveling with Tedean. And how do we make sure these things still happen, although we're busy?
That's really good.
What about you, Tedean?
Yeah, kind of piggybacking off what he said, like understanding. I think it's so important to understand who you are and what you need, because I'm the complete opposite. Like, I am an introvert to the core. So I recharge at home, like, and just like, doing slow paced activities. I love to sleep. But then also, for me, like, I love, like, just simple things, that I can do near my house, like getting massages. I love getting massages, going to the spa, just like, things like that. Or just sitting on the couch with a cozy blanket. Like, that is totally me. And so, like, just identifying, like, okay, what are the days during my week or during the month that I can just get to just slow down.
And like short insight into our marriage. Like, I'm a heavy calendar person. There's like 3 of them I run my life off of. Like, when we go to a new month, I'll look through. It's like, I need this event. For us, it's 2 weekends from now. There's a retreat for the medical school. And I was like, hey, if no one is dying at work, like, we must both get there. Like, I must have this retreat. So like, I'll pick a weekend or so per month where it's like, here's this thing I really want to do. And Tedean will pick a weekend or so. Like, I'm not leaving the house. Like, you can go wherever, but for this weekend, I will not leave the house. Just be aware. So
beautiful. I love it. It sounds like this acceptance of each other. You're not trying to make the other one do what the other one wants to do. I think that's really great. I loved hearing you say you schedule your wellness. Your wellness. That's really good. That's important. If it's not on the schedule, it's not happening. And so many people say, I need to do this, I'm going to do this, and months, weeks, years go by and they haven't scheduled their wellness, and they don't.
Burnout is happening. You don't have to schedule burnout. It's gonna happen if you don't schedule the wellness.
And it can show up in your health, your health, not just you may think, oh, I'm not depressed, I'm not anxious, but wow, I'm having some medical issues coming up for me, and nobody can understand where they're coming from, what's happening there. So thank you guys so much. Kudos to you. We're not going to take up more of your time here. Go to the beach on our behalf if you get a chance. No pressure, though, by the way. I'll wrap up in a blanket for me as well.
Just real quick, I think you all said if perchance somebody wanted to reach you, we could share your email addresses. So we have Dr. Morgan Green. You can reach him at dr.jpmorgan@gmail.com. And for Dr. Tedean Green, you can reach her at tedeanhunter@gmail.com. So thank you again for being on the show. Thank you for your vulnerability and just giving us a real glimpse into the healthcare profession with your experiences, as we've discussed cultural humility.
Awesome.
And just in wrapping up here, just wanted to remind you all that if you are interested, Mia is going to be teaching her next mental health first aid certification course. You can go to our website at painunwasted.org and click on the orange banner on top to just get put on the wait list. So when we send the information out, you can be one of the first to get your 10 no, what is it, 25? Half off?
50. We're actually giving 50% off. Yes.
For the 8-hour certification. And also, if you're interested, please check out, and the link is in the description. Mia recently did a video for 5 ways to help someone in a mental health crisis. So this actually gives you a sneak peek into what you'll be getting in the course. So it's in the description, or if you just go into YouTube and look up Pain Unwasted, you look for our channel and our logo, and it's one of the latest videos put out there. It's just about maybe 7 minutes or so. All right, so check that out. And also, one last thing to help us out. So we are 4 subscriptions away from hitting 100 subscribers.
Yay.
Now that's maybe not big, but it's a milestone. It's going from 2 digits to 3.
That's true.
And so if you
I
don't
remember
mind,
when we only had 3 subscribers.
Yes. So if you're watching right now, go ahead and smash that subscribe button where you get more great content as we interview other professionals and other business heroes, entrepreneurs, and just help us to reach that goal today, right now. Just hit boom, subscribe.
Awesome.
All right.
Awesome.
Any closing remarks, babe?
No, just I really would love to have you in the class. You'll really love it. It's a lot of fun, even though we talk about a topic that's highly stigmatized, So you'll learn how to recognize the signs and symptoms of someone that is battling with mental illness, but also how to respond appropriately. So many people wind up in the hospital. Some people even decide to take their lives. And it may be that if we knew what to do in those situations, that we could actually save a life, right? And so definitely sign up for the course. If not you, someone you know needs this information. And so thank you so much for that. All right. Well, we'll see you next week when we interview some more great people. It's going to be awesome. So see you next week, same time, same place.
All right. Take care and God bless.